3 FM. Program is Straight Up, and I'm Marlon Morgan. We are taking your calls in this segment, listeners. 212-9824, and there's also 462-0919. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Morning, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, caller.
Yeah, I'm very against you, so I'm gonna either you're being disingenuous or your memory fail you. But before I get to that, Miranda.
You sound a bit far from the phone. You sound.
Alright. Can you hear me better now? Any better?
Yeah, I'm hearing you better now. Yeah, go ahead, Bongo.
Miranda, the one who go against Slide, I think. Does she have a constituents?
If she has what?
Does she have a constituents?
No.
Is she a member of parliament? I heard your friend say her constituents yesterday. Not the day before yesterday.
Put this, I mean, you can make that reference loosely. In other words, so your stakeholders, right? The people who we are seeking to represent, they would invariably be, your.
No, sir. Well, I think it's I know. That's not what it is. Secondly,
so technically you're not the elected member of parliament, so they're not your constituents. Exactly. But as a loose reference and a loose manner of speaking, we know that these are your stakeholders, the people who are, on the voters list in this space or reside in this space. And
you're telling the country and did Dr. Wickham Macleod, did he walk away from the constituency or was voted out by the people?
He was rejected by the people for his non-performance, notwithstanding 5 terms.
I heard Conor Brand telling that, by the way, he walked away from the constituency. He was kicked and voted out. Now, the return with you now, sir. I think you're unfair to Peter Bunting. Peter Bunting had some success as Minister of National Security. You remember when he was in the hotel and they stole his laptop?
So you call it a success?
Well, let us examine it, sir. That's the fear.
Very well.
That ignominy of the Minister of National Security in a hotel with a laptop which have the sensitive information about national security was stolen into that. But he got it back. So you don't think that's a success, Mr.
Yes, man, good. That was, he was able to salvage something in terms of getting the device returned, apparently.
Bearing in mind, we do not know our Minister of National Security could be in a hotel secure and a young man stole the laptop with very sensitive security information. But I think we should give him. They got it back. The police were successful in arresting that man, right? Correct. So, I mean, mind you, he cried in my room. They only got him because they like prevention. So, I think you should give him a score. The police did their work and they caught that culprit. And we don't know the information was compromised, though. So, when I look at our government, now let me make it clear, Senator. I believe that our General Secretary is too much work. He's not capable of managing a young person who are more active should do that. But that's the party chooses that. So that's how that be. But I have to lift my hat to Dr. Chang. Why I do that? The two most graveyard ministry was Ministry of Finance and National Security. That will bring on anybody. And surprisingly, long before Dr. Chang actually became Minister of National Security, he did a scientific approach to gang formation. And I remember he said in the records of telling the nation how the methodological approach that is needed to solve crime. And we are being the fruition now. What do you say?
Who devised that methodological approach?
Dr. Chang used to go on the Breakfast Club and tell the science behind the gangs long before the JLP was in power. And I must tell you, he approached it with science, the methodological approach, and we are now enjoying the fruition. Yes.
Well, there's no doubt that Chang has been particularly methodical, yeah, in relation to how he has gone about, bringing the various elements together to address our crime situation in the country. Because what had eluded us over the period is just this business of addressing several things simultaneously, not least the boots on the ground or the men and women available to the chief constable for deployment. So moving the JCF to establishment and bringing the JDF more to its establishment are critical steps in terms of force multipliers as it relates to crime management in the country.
Well, I can tell you this though. There was a senator, or is a senator, who from Green Bay fame. Let me tell you, he used to be on the same program in the evening. And when Holness stated in lobby that they're going to make sure that people can sleep with the window open, he used to ridicule that.
And I remember the playing of the tapes.
Well, I know. Well, hear this now. What caused me to shut up? He used to be on the program and just get a call that 2 men were killed in Clarendon. Just get a call while it's on the program. And then you get a call from...
I remember that vividly, man. So, Bongo. Yeah, go ahead with the question. Go ahead.
I wonder why the police never seek him as a person of interest. Because, first of all, when I listen to other journalists, like Cliff Hughes, he said he got the information, but he got to verify with the police.
Yeah.
How is it that the person who saw those murder have access to the senator?
So just to be clear, the senator, and you're speaking of Lambert Brown here, the senator has an access to, just like what Andre Stevens does on his YouTube platform. They have an access to a network of PNP supporters. So we live in a country where some people wear orange shirts, some people wear green shirts, and nothing is wrong with that. Now, what was wrong is that there was a degree of glee and delight for political purposes, for politically contrived purposes, whenever these unfortunate incidents would happen. Because I used to always say to myself, do these guys not realize that among the very people who may be taken out from time to time are the people who they profess to love, their own PNP supporters? So I remember him being on the program, being on the airwaves, and you would hear him read out something to say, boy, 2 men were just shot and killed in Hanover. Yes, there was a triple murder up in Crofts Hill, and he used to report it with considerable glee.
Before verifying with the police. No, I'm going to tell you something that you don't remember, and maybe don't know. In the 70s, there was a third force, Everybody talk about the people in JLP at war. There was a third force, and that third force was engaged in bank robbery. Right? I say a third force, and just leave it at that. Bank robbery and certain type of murder. I saw a senator in the Senate the other day call for a moment of silence for the babies that died prematurely. If I were in the Senate, you know what I would say? Okay, Senator, let us also have a moment of silence for the murder of Maurice Bishop, for the Gold Street massacre.
That would be a stretch because that's a bit dated, that's why.
No,
and we knew Bongo precisely what Lambert Brown was doing that morning, and we were not going to fall for it. So there was an appropriate acquiescence, and the Senate, the chamber, duly observed a minute of silence because we spare a thought for those grieving mothers and would-be parents.
Yes.
On the loss of their children. But what is clear, and what Lambert Brown should know, is that though premature, those were babies in the real sense.
Real babies, real human beings. All right, finally, let me just say this to you. There's a myth that is amongst journalists, unfortunately. They stated that on the KD night, the operation of the police force was left to the police command, and the policy was for the minister. And I hear them talk about that was changed on the KD night. I'm like, you want evidence of that, Mr. Morgan?
What was the assertion? Give me the assertion again.
It is said that under KD Knight, the police resorted to the minister makes policy and the police carried out operation. It was believed that the minister would have directed the police to go raid Tivoli, go raid, so and so. So they said that champions and KD Knight brought an end to that. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Give me your version of your version of the.
I'm gonna give you the evidence.
Yeah.
Did anybody remember a prime minister once said that they're gonna supply the police with free horses? No, I'm sure you don't remember that. Before Michael Gale died. Yes, there was a prime minister who said that. That was never mentioned by media. Yeah, he said we're gonna provide the police with free horses. Oh yes. Now listen carefully. When Berito, Ricardo over Valentino Adams group was formed, where did they meet and with who? I'm listening, sir.
Where did they what? Meet?
Where did that Adams squad, where did they meet and with whom did they meet?
I don't know. Touch it, my listeners.
Oh, they met Jamaica with their most honorable principal James Patterson without the Commissioner Francis Forbes. Francis Forbes knew nothing. He was the Commissioner of Police. And he knew nothing about it was the CMU they call it? CMU?
Yeah, man, the CMU, Crime Management Unit. And they are the Kingfish motor car and so on.
Mr. Adams himself said that they met at Jamaica House with the Prime Minister. Francis Forbes never knew anything about it. Now, that shattered the myth that Mr. Knight changed it from policy to operation. And Adam said himself, at one point, Francis Forbes said, something have to save a man from himself, talk too much. Anybody want to refute that? So if it were that KD Knight in the jury changed their approach of being a minister makes policy and the police count operation, de jure, that was the de facto reality. So then journalists must do their job. What I'm saying here, none of them can refute it. Mr. Adams said that they met at Jamaica House and the resources that they got was not acquired through the police commissioner as the law set up. So I just want to let anybody dispute that. So this and Team that is giving kudos. Oh, the first minister, rubbish. The CMU was autonomous. They were quasi to the whole police operation federation system. That's what happened. So I just want to, people to understand that, because what used to happen in the past, it was believed that the minister will direct the police as to where it should go and where not to go. And there's something I want to say to you also, Mr. Morgan, and the listeners. There was a very infamous young leader in Spanish Town. Very powerful, in fact.
Bulby.
When he was killed, it was said that over 200 people murder was associated with him. Did you ever hear reward offered for him, Mr.
A reward offered for him? No.
Yes, never heard.
When they say a reward offered for him, meaning for his arrest and charge?
Yes. He was reputed to have been involved in over 200 murders. There was no reward offered for him. And let me tell you something that a lot of people don't remember. When Adams was being interviewed once, they said, but if you were so good, why never catch Monday? I want to know what his response was, Mr. Senator Marlon. What was the response of Adams? And I believe him.
I don't know.
Want to tell you what his response was? Huh?
No, hello? Go ahead, Bongo.
His response was he backed him up and he was told to back off. That's what Renito, I'm telling you, I can give you my name and everything so you can tell. He said that he was told to back off.
Well?
So finally, Finally, you were too young to remember George Flash et al. When the JLP won in 1980, how did these men have access to Spain to go away? They were the most wanted. You heard of the Mr. Ted Ogilvy? You remember
That's
that
right.
name?
Permanent secretary back in the 70s. He was snuffed out. He was killed.
Yes.
In fact, just the other day was the 50th anniversary of Ted Ogilvy's passing.
Yes. So, people must factor these. Although the really men, they were no angels. They deserve their court. They deserve due process, So when people talking about government and criminality, they don't understand and want to recognize. Finally, I'm just saying to you, sir, that senator need to be asked by Record Truth and Reconciliation Commission about what actually happened in Grenada. He started it once. Yes, he started it, And do you remember when he was interviewed on the breakfast? I won't tell you what he said. And with Professor Roberton, you remember what Lambert brought in?
No, sir, you will remind my listeners, because them don't remember either.
Well, let me tell you what he said. There was the 70 warders that a strike, and they were fired by who? The Minister of National Security, Katie Knight. And the warders were represented by the UAW. Oh, yes. And the chief operative of the UAW was that senator. There were two senators, actually. One was independent PMP1. He was a czar, he came to be a czar of integrity. And what happened? Katie refused to reemploy them as the minister. So the senator who is on this program fell out with the minister, yes? And he was a betrayal because the other independent PMP senator, the czar of integrity, talked with Katie Knight. That was trying to get, he still was trying to get some kind of traction in politics, but he rejected him over. So what happened now? The breakfast club and him had a fallout because the host of the breakfast club was this independent so-called PMP senator. And one morning, he said that to the czar, the reason why the WPJ broke up because we never want another green like Jamaica. And listen, record, be careful, and I said, we know what was happening in Grenada. And Professor Robert the senator, that's the one who supposed the program, castigated that other person, and the observer and a bill page spread of the verbatim discussion that disappeared on the annals of the media. If you ever heard it or anybody remember it and tell you the truth, then we would say things that were pointed. Grenada, what happened in Grenada was pointed, and all those who say they want equity, their hands ever look clean. I think I've said enough, sir.
No, you haven't said enough. We have 7 minutes to the 11 o'clock break.
All right.
I gave an opening commentary this morning, Bongo. Did you happen to hear it?
No, I missed it. Tell me what it was.
Oh, dear. Because my opening commentary, I treat it, I contextualize today. Not so much Ted Ogilvy and them something there. My opening commentary focused attention on today. In other words, there is a narrative being peddled by the government's detractors, the PNP and their surrogates, that the things that are being happening all of a sudden because elections are in the air. Now think about it, Bongo. If you never manage the affairs of the country in a way to put you in a position to do things, would you be in a position to be doing things? So would you be in a position to be buying buses and fixing road and all kinds of things? So that is their new way really of diminishing and pouring cold water or scoffing at the very transformative and transformational and important things that are unfolding before the eyes of the people of Jamaica. Like, for example, the National Stadium that will be rebuilt, basically. Yes, a redeveloped national stadium that will come on stream by 2029. These are the kind of game-changing things that are happening in Jamaica and will be happening in Jamaica.
So Marlon, they wrote in this statement that when Omar confessed that because election and he wants to say that to have a chance, he ran with it. And that cost the country at the time.
And remember Omar's mantra. He said that it was better to be on the inside rather than be on the outside looking on to wonder how Mr. Siaga and his team were handling the issue. He preferred to be on the inside fixing the problem than for the opponents to be there. Very profound mantra.
Remember when the football Jamaica drew nil I think with Mexico, at the time the electoral system was being overhauled and there was $500 million was being spent to complete it. You remember the statement? 1998 was far too late for me to wait to fly the gate. You remember the statement? And back who made it?
I suspect that would have been Patricia, sir.
Yes. He sacrificed the proper electoral advisory system for expediency. So what is art in the PNP? They think that they can do their medicine, when I see sincerely, Andrew is, he's doing what he has to do. In fact, I hear your friend, Canada Burns, on a call on Monday or Tuesday. Imagine that they're going to protest for the election. The election day is set now, Mr. Marlon. You did not know that.
Well, they say they're going to do, they're going to what? They're going to what? Protest?
No. Yes, they want election. No, under the constitution, our election day is fixed, by the way. Because after the parliament meets that person, you have 5 years after that under normal circumstances.
You're correct, Bongo. So let us just set out some facts. We had the elections on September 3, 2020. The parliament was convened on September 15, 2020, I think it was. So these elections are essentially to be called by 15th September 2025. And if circumstances so necessitate, you have a 3-month outer limit. That would basically take you up to December 15, 2025. Yeah. I am trusting that we won't have to get there. We're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping for no, adverse situation that would require or necessitate that avenue. So for the people who are talking about protests, what they need to understand is that if the incoming Prime Minister has elected not to go as yet, it is simply because there are some other things to happen and deliver for the people of Jamaica in this term. And then after that, now, we put the verdict to the people. What they wanted was for an early election because what they thought is that they were in the ascendancy. And the Dan Anderson polls has shown, according to Fidem Dan Anderson polls, they're ahead by 3%. When last September, in September of 2024, they were ahead by 9%, according to Fidem Dan Anderson polls. So what it shows is that they're going in the wrong direction. And that is what they may be concerned with and concerned about.
So then, yes. So I just ignore them because when I hear the moderator inciting that they protest, the election is due as a right for the state at a certain time. It is fixed.
If I were the moderator, let me leave that there. I was just going to make a suggestion to the moderator regarding some evening class or something, but I won't venture there.
Yeah, man. You see, the problem, is that the TNP put their comment first. That's how they right. They put their comment first, and Jamaica, I don't even know where Jamaica is. They put their comment first. We don't want that. Unfortunately, they have a leader who put Britain first. I wonder, I heard Andrew stated where he was born, Spanish Hospital. I wonder how long you gentlemen of the JLP going to allow Marlon not to tell us, show evidence where he was born
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have to leave it there, Bongo. He said he was born at the University Hospital. In born at UC, him said. Anyway, we're out of time. We're up on the NPR news. All the best.
All right.
Good,
Thank you,
good.
my brother.
Diving into the economic frontier and exploring the latest revelations that we've had in relation to unemployment, inflation, and of course, business and consumer confidence. Now, the headline, Jamaica's unemployment rate has dropped to 3.3%, marking a strong rebound in the labor market. That's what we would have had in recent days. And so we're joined by noted economist Keenan Faulkner, no stranger to our platform here on Straight Up, to give us some, or help us to better understand what is happening and weigh in on some other matters having regard to his skill sets and expertise. Good morning, Keenan. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Marlon. How are you doing?
I'm good, and I trust you and your family are well?
Yes, well so far.
All right, very well. So we were at 3.5% some months ago. Then we came to 3.7, I think it was. Now we're at a new record low, 3.3. Unpack that for us, Skin and Faulkner, and give us a sense as to what this means for the state of play as it relates to the labor market here in Jamaica at present.
Well, what has happened in the most recent quarter is that the labor force has grown by about 20,500 persons, and the employed labor force has grown by 25,000. So essentially, the employed labor force has grown faster than the total labor force, which means that more persons who had been previously looking for jobs now got them, in addition to people who are new, who had not previously been looking for jobs now being employed. So we're speaking about decreases in both the unemployed labor force, so persons who were looking have now gotten jobs, and persons who just participated again in the labor force looking for jobs also got jobs.
I want you to go back again. I want you to give us a breakdown again. First of all, for the benefit of my listeners who are not seized of what we mean by labor force, unpack for them what the labor force is, Keenan Faulkner.
So the labor force comprises two segments, the employed labor force and the unemployed labor force. The employed labor force are those persons who have jobs. The unemployed labor force are those persons who do not have jobs, but they are looking, they're able, they're available for work, but they just don't have a job. The persons outside the labor force now are persons who, for whatever reason, they're not participating. So they're not looking, they're not, participating. It could be for many different reasons. They just either don't want to work, or they are in school, or
they're in the workforce because they're in working age.
Well, no, the workforce is the labor force. So if you're outside of the labor force, you're not in the workforce. But you can be eligible to work if you choose to. So if you are able to, if you're available, if you have the right skill set, and you choose to participate. But there are many different reasons why persons will not participate. It can be that they are choosing to go back to school. It can be that they are participating in the care economy, so they have household responsibilities, mostly women, and they choose not to work, and so on. So that is really the state of the labor force. We are at essentially a point called full employment. So when you get this low at 3%, 4%, it is essentially that everybody are looking for a job, but they are not employed. So those persons are now counted as the unemployed labor force. They're looking, but they don't have it. Right. So when you are at such a low point now, it's going to start to meander around a particular point. So you realize it went up to 3.7
a few months ago,
down back to 3.5, and then came back down to 3.3. So it's going to meander somewhere between 3 and 4%. So if it goes back up slightly, if it goes down slightly, there's no real it's not much different from where it is right now.
It's just the vagaries of where we are in the grander scheme of things. It will, maneuver between, this band, as it were, with current situation holding as it is.
Right, and this is largely due to the fact that it is said that there's a labor shortage in particular industries. Now, labor shortage just means that you cannot find the right persons who have the skill set that is in demand. So it's not that the persons are unskilled.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that they have something else that they are certified or qualified in, but it's not in demand right now by the persons who need them. So in order to equilibrate that supply and demand, you now have to reskill or upskill or, change certifications as appropriate in order that you can take advantage of the job that is available in terms of the skill set that is currently demanded that people need to supply. So you could have...
No, go ahead. Complete the thought, Keenan.
Yeah, you could have 1 million people, right, who are looking for work. But if they have skills right now that are not demanded at the moment in the market, then they will not be employed. So it's not the fact that you are unskilled or you're unsuited for work. It's just about what the market demands right now.
Yeah. And so it behooves government and industry alike to ramp up training in such a way as to be more agile and responsive to the skill sets that are required.
Right, as well as to be able to identify where those skill sets are. And I believe the government had announced some time ago that they would create a database that would essentially help to reduce that informational asymmetry. So you would now be able to pair those persons who have the skills that you're looking for with the places that are
so
seeking.
The Heart NSTA has since developed that it's a database which would give persons a sense as to the openings and the opportunities that exist, and so you can be seized of where it is that skills or what skills rather are in demand.
Right, and I don't think it should be overlooked that the number of persons outside the labor force fell. So that just meant that more persons have started to look, and then thankfully many of those persons who have looked
were able to fit into the skills areas.
Right, and so in terms of the actual occupation groups now, so the one that grew the most in that last quarter.
You're talking about the job groups or the job types now.
Right, so both industry group and occupational group. So most of the additional employment really came from services and sales workers. And I suspect that is a function of the fact that the commercial environment has been experiencing some expansion. You realize commercial real estate has been booming relative to residential real estate. Many persons have been moving towards commercial space like warehousing, retail, and office space. So that accounts for the increase in service workers. In terms of the industry groups, most of the increase came from public administration and defense. So I suspect that is as a result of the additional employment in the public sector. The police is now at full complement, for example, that added around 2,000 more officers. There are other posts that were created that needed to have been filled and things like that. So that is where the additional employment came from. Looking back previously in the last, say, 6 to 10 years, the greatest growth has really come in construction and real estate. Construction also includes road construction, manufacturing as well. And that's why in many instances, persons in the construction industry have brought to the attention that, look, we can't find persons. It has been accelerating at such a pace that you can't find persons to work or who want to work for the wage that is being offered. So that is really the situation that is happening in terms of the occupation groups now. There has been an increase in professionals, senior officials, technicians, technocrats, and senior and managers, as well as craft-related workers. You're looking at other shop and market sales workers. So these are the categories that have been growing in the last couple of years.
Yeah. All right. And then on the youth side, we see youth unemployment. I would put it at unprecedented low as 10%. Well, coming in at 10%, 10.1. So you can round that off to 10% safely. What do you make of that, Keenan, in terms of the young people in our midst?
I think there's also a link between the reduction in youth unemployment and the growth in the formation of businesses. So there would have been, I think, around an extra 9,000 business names and company names in the last
This is based
year,
on the
about
Companies
the last
Office of Jamaica, yeah?
Right. So, persons, especially the younger cohort, 35 and under, they are not really waiting for wage and salaried labor. They're creating the jobs on their own. So we have seen that expansion in that particular segment. And I think that is responsible for driving down youth unemployment, which had been as high as in the 30s percent in the past.
Indeed. And of note as well, Keenan, is what is happening on the confidence side of the equation, business and consumer confidence. Your perspectives on that? We know that...
Despite the increase in business and consumer confidence, I think that is more a function of internal resilience. So companies have taken steps to actually, make their operations withstand particular shocks that they expect. So right now, the environment, as we see it geopolitically, globally, in terms of inflation, it's still elevated.
Still topsy-turvy, yeah. Still, the volatility is still there, especially with developments in the Middle East in recent weeks. We were mindful, very mindful of, what the dynamics in the global space is.
Right, and then that filters into perceptions about the monetary environment. So the Bank of Jamaica can't really reduce rates as fast or aggressive as they had probably initially planned to, because the inflationary environment is still very uncertain.
Yeah,
it's still
a
very
lot of wait and
unpredictable.
see. Yeah, it's a wait and see pattern.
Right. So even though there might be some optimism, they're still necessarily cautious. We have seen, despite the rebound in the economy, which has shown resilience, the category wholesale and retail workers actually fell. It has not. It is still negative. It grew by negative 0.8% in the last figures, which shows some amount of softening in consumer expenditure, and as a result, that might filter into persons' perceptions. We saw that inflation was 3.8%, but despite the fact that it is low, it is also indicative of low demand. So it is good in one sense, it might be indicative of something else in another sense. So given that confluence of factors, I think that has impacted people's perceptions, and they have now said, yes, things are positive only because the fundamentals are in the right place. We are stable in almost all respects, but there's still something to look out for on the horizon.
Yeah. And as I've rightly said, resilience is an important thing, because we know that there will be vagaries, whether things happening, edicts coming from President Trump in the United States. One of the more recent ones, Keenan, being the tax, as it were, on remittances, yeah? How do you contemplate that affecting or impacting the flow of, hard currency between the United States and Jamaica, for example?
Usually whenever there's a shock or some amount of crisis, incidentally, persons in the diaspora, they end up sending more in terms of remittances. So if I usually send $100 and I know I have to pay an extra dollar. Just for the sake of conversation, the average transaction is around $200. So I'm sending an extra $2. That might not seriously deter some persons, but at the macroeconomic level, if it does, you could be looking at possibly some amount of reduction in remittances that are sent, and that has implications as well for the dollar. If you don't have the foreign exchange coming in, you cannot stabilize
meet demands in the market, and that may have pressures on the reserves and pressures on the exchange rate here in Jamaica.
Right.
But basically, when I think of remittances, Keenan, I think of parents who support their children back home in Jamaica, a partner supporting their spouse, and indeed workers over there in the global north who support their elderly parents here in Jamaica. And if you think of elasticity, that to me is something that is, fairly inelastic. People will typically, as it were, be honoring their obligations in relation to you're working overseas, you have your child back home or your spouse back home, or indeed your elderly parent. You will continue typically to provide that support, and which is why I concur with the observation you made earlier, whereas, remittance flows don't seem to fall off so considerably with the various, movement in tide.
Right, and during COVID, it was the opposite that happened. Persons had been hit very hard. Some persons, they actually sent more. So it's very possible that that could happen. I mean, if you're looking at the potential fallout, it may be $20 million US. It could be up to 40 million US. And we're talking about money that goes directly into persons' hands. As you said, the equivalent of that would be 6.5 billion Jamaican. And just think about the fact that persons are spending that in real time, immediately, to meet household demands and household expenses and consumption. So at the microeconomic level, it will have a more apparent impact than it would at the national level. So, the economy can probably do without 20 million US in a year, generally, but at the person's level where it's going directly into people's hands, it is the difference between making this purchase or delaying this purchase. That very smaller scale is what persons now have to consider, and it looks different for everybody.
So, if you were to proffer a comment on the state of the economy having regard to these important indicators, Keen and Faulkner, you look at inflation in the order of 3.8%, business and consumer confidence at essentially all-time highs. Certainly for consumer confidence, that's at an all-time high. And when you consider unemployment at an all-time low, what are you gleaning as to the state of the economy where these things are concerned? Well, so based on these indicators.
Right. So I think the economy could be accurately portrayed as being stable. I don't think we can get much more stable than where we are right now. You're talking about NIR being the highest it has ever been. Inflation is stable and predictable. Unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. Debt has been low in quite some time. But now we do need to transition to the next phase. And I think the next phase, you don't really speak so much about fiscal consolidation and macroeconomic stability anymore. You're now moving to a phase where you're talking about economic diversification, you're talking about industrial expansion, you're talking about inclusive and sustainable growth. So it's about now actually achieving that meaningful growth, which is the chronic condition that we have been afflicted by for many decades. So I think, we need to cross the Rubicon where that is concerned. We have hit an inflection point. You see that in unemployment figures where it cannot possibly get much better
than this.
The returns are marginal.
And you're right. When you speak of diversifying, or diversification, Keenan, that is from whence higher incomes are to come as well, in terms of, certain skill sets and jobs in global process outsourcing, not just the routine handling of calls in BPOs.
Yes. And you're speaking about as well the fact that employment has to drive that. So if most of your employment is now in higher value added, higher skilled industries, you will start to see the growth. We have struggled with supply side constraints, which the government has been addressing, such as crime, for example. You address things like the cost of electricity. We talk about transport. That's when you're going to see real transformation.
And when I think of supply side constraints as well, I think of water. So irrigation water in particular, which is why I was particularly and continue to be particularly gung-ho, keen and Faulkner on the Pedro Plains irrigation project, and even that Western water resilience project that will unlock St. James and Hanover and Trelawney as well.
Right, and even infrastructure in general. So water, you're talking about water, sewage, roads. Those are the things that build connectivity. They build resilience against shocks. So it's now really for Jamaica, we're at a critical point and time for us to move to the next phase.
And another important, supply side constraint that it impacts productivity is public transportation. So to the extent that we are seeing greater injection into the fleet of the JUTC, Keenan Fortner. What do you make of developments on that front? Not just school buses, yeah, but more so just the injection into the JUTC fleet in general. As we saw last afternoon, 93 new units coming in to ensure that Jamaicans can be moved from point A to point B with greater degrees of reliability and safety.
I mean, think about it this way. When you have a disruption in public transport, people can't get to work, they cannot go and conduct business. So that is a drag on economic activity. So you want to make sure that people are moving around as efficiently as possible, in the safest manner possible. So any augmentation to public transport will necessarily do that. And just going back to unemployment for a second, even though unemployment is at its lowest, if people do not necessarily now have the opportunity to spend or the capacity to spend, then you're not going to see that demand being stimulated in the economy. And that is why we are at a sort of paradox where we have simultaneously low inflation and unemployment. If there was more demand being driven in the economy, then inflation would start to pick up, the economy would start to overheat. You don't really see that happening right now. So it's about removing constraints and barriers to both demand and economic activity, and of course transport does play a big part in that.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for your perspectives and insight. Marlon Morgan. The program, station is New Start 93 FM. We have phone lines available. We know that the usually vocal people, the ones who seek to wax warm in particular on a Monday and on a Tuesday. I used a particular analogy and a particular imagery yesterday. And I am quite adept at analogies. And I think that I've found the perfect one. And that, quite frankly, is how these people are to be viewed. If you happen to have a space that is infested and overrun with certain creatures, so soon as the lights come on, you see them scampering all over the place. Where there is darkness, yeah, where conditions are conducive, you will see them in their element. And where the conditions are not conducive, a different kettle of fish. A different kettle of fish. I am hearing of JUTC buses being stoned. I gather there has been at least 2 such incidents overnight. JUTC buses having, whether it's with window or the windscreen, struck by stones that were clearly hurled at the units, hurled at the buses. I won't be premature, but clearly, to the extent that stone is hurled at a bus, that seems deliberate. That would only be done by someone who is an enemy of the state. I'm not going to ascribe or attribute political motive at this point in time. I will prefer to, relax a bit and hear from authorities who are investigating and allow some further and better particulars to come to the fore and emerge. So I won't cast aspersions. But what is for sure is that I wouldn't be surprised that there are enemies of the state among us. And there are many, quite frankly. There are many. I wouldn't be surprised that some of the enemies of the state, like those who can't bring themselves on a morning like this to pick up their phone as they would on a Monday and a Tuesday, because they know that they won't be able to talk rubbish in an unchallenged manner. They can talk their rubbish, But what they do not want, what they can't countenance, is the rubbish being challenged. Yeah? That is the difference. And as I said yesterday, where those creatures move around in the dark and have a grand time, a huge song and dance, whenever the lights come on, trouble there. You see them scampering, running to rush go under the stove, rush go under the fridge, run go behind a one part, figure hide. Unemployment is at 3.3%. Simpson will never do that. PJ Patterson don't know what that is like. Yeah? Business and consumer confidence at record highs. Patterson don't know what that is like. Simpson Miller don't know what that is like. And some can't bear it. We will await word from the authorities. We will await further and better particulars from the authorities as to what precisely is transpiring in relation to the JUTC. But what I will say is that the inflammatory and destructive rhetoric and utterances from the opposition PNP will set the stage for deleterious and destructive actions. When a man takes to a political platform and says, "As some old boss," and a bark out him throat, "As some old boss," to kill off poor people, pitney, you are seeding in the minds of people certain things, and quite frankly, you are causing persons to view the state-acquired bosses with a certain degree of contempt and distrust, because you have characterized them as items that will kill off poor people. And those are the kinds of, reckless utterances that come from the Bill House in a Swamp crew. These people have been described by Minister Vaz as wicked, evil, and bad mind. I will use other platforms to join with him in describing them as such. I won't use this one so to do. Yeah? But what is for sure is that they are a particularly desperate and despicable bunch. For many years, Jamaica has envisaged and longed for a rural school bus system. In fact, a rural state-operated bus system. Because structurally and technically, what obtains at present is not equitable. It's structurally flawed, though it is understood. What am I referring to here? State-sponsored public transportation is available in the KMTR, the Kingston Metropolitan Transport Region. It is not as available in other parts of the island. Over in St. James, there's the Montego Bay Metro. But understand for a moment that the JUTC is funded by all of we. The taxpayers of Jamaica finance the JUTC. And therefore, it is structurally inequitous and structurally undesirable for people to be called upon by way of their taxes to finance something from whence they do not and may never derive a benefit. So they are essentially subsidizing others. They pick me where go school at Kellets. and Spalding High, and Christiana High, Homewood, Black River High, Holland High, you name it, Newell. Those students, their parents take out money out of them pocket and give them to make their way to school. Typically via taxi and minibus and coaster bus and all these things. And they do not get a state subsidized and a state operated transportation system. And in part, the rural school bus system will be addressing this deficit and responding to this challenge in part. 100 buses, listeners, will not be able to transport and carry the volume of rural school children that exists. It is a start, however, and the start, I think and dare say, of something grand and wonderful. Yeah? But there are persons who have set them bad mouth on it, talking about kill off poor people pitney, invariably wishing death upon the children. But we turn that back, we reverse that curse in Jesus' name. Any bad mouth, any weapon, any evil thought put out into the universe where our children of Jamaica are concerned, we turn that back. We return that to sender. We return that to the doorsteps of Peter Murcott Bunting. And we're unapologetic and unequivocal in so doing. But when you have reckless utterances, desperate and despicable utterances emanating from political leaders in the country, or some little miscreants who some people look up to as their political leaders, like those who look up to a Peter Bunting, I could never do so. Not in a million years. Those people who look up to Mark Golding as a political leader, those are the people who are misled and will consider and may be led to view the rural school bus system and what is happening in the bus system as a whole negatively. Because Darrell Vaz has thrown down the gauntlet. He has made it very clear. Say bus I go keep. And it will be bus after bus after bus. And indeed, even in saying it, Vaz recognizes and understands that some will not welcome it and some will not like it. Because school bus for the pitney them, in their minds, in the mind of the PNP's leadership, and it has misled many of its supporters in that regard. Yes? Rural school bus in their minds is a divider or something that will separate them from Jamaica House. So they won't like it. Anything that will cause or serve to push them further and further away from Jamaica House, they will not like those things. They don't have criminality. They don't have the back of crime to ride on going into these elections. All they're clutching to is the assistance Kevin Stevenson sought to provide or provided by way of his report and his actions as Director of Investigations at the IC, whether wittingly or unwittingly. That's all they have. But who certified and who for the pan ballot. They better go find an evening class for go, guy. Go find something to do. Go and find an evening class to enroll in. And learn to read things that are on paper. It is not desirable for news to be coming through of stones being hurled at JUTC buses. But let us not be premature in our conclusions. "93 buses were handed over yesterday. And for whatever reason, the opposition spokesman on transport, Michael Phillips, a man who will stand to benefit from these buses insofar as his constituents, because in these 93 buses, there are some units that will serve as premium buses. In other words, they will typically pay a higher fare because it's a part of the JUTC's delivery of what is called a premium service. And Daryl Vaz has indicated, listeners, that he will open up a route between, what is it? Is it Kingston or Half-a-Tree and Mandeville? There's a route that will be opened up, a JUTC service. I don't know if it is between Spanish Town or downtown Kingston and Mandeville. But a JUTC service will open up because, as listeners will appreciate, there is that extension to the East-West Highway linking Maypen to Williamsfield, which is further west of Maypen. So there's JUTC service to connect the KMTR to Mandeville. And Michael Phillips, who supposedly has one subject, is the Member of Parliament for Manchester Northwestern. His constituents, in all likelihood, will benefit from the JUTC. The very buses that were handed over last afternoon, Michael Phillips's constituents will benefit. And then, for whatever reason, he did not show up yesterday. He was slated to speak. That means the authorities would have had confirmation from him or his office as to his participation. Hence, he was slated on the program to speak. At least that's the information I have had transmitted to me. And it is not surprising, because Michael Phillips's leader, Mark Golding, has been setting an example of sorts to them as his followers. He is notorious for staying away from the good things them. So whether it is a CARICOM heads of government regular meeting, as we had a couple Sundays ago in Montego Bay, or the opening of the Morant Bay Urban Center over in St. Thomas, as we had a few weeks ago, Mark Golding is in the habit of not showing up to the respective events. The events that mean good for the people of Jamaica. And I suspect it is because him can't bear to see the good things happening for the people of Jamaica. And whereas we have the Emancipendence celebrations coming up, I think the government may well have to consider how they go about issuing those tickets to the Grand Gala. Because it is my suspicion that the PNP will not want to see a successful and jubilant staging of Grand Gala. I gather that members of Parliament, as political functionaries, are usually issued tickets to Grand Gala so that they can in turn issue them to their constituents. I have a sneaking suspicion that the PNP MPs may seek to withhold those tickets so that the Grand Gala can be under-attended. And I would suggest to the government, try go and make those Grand Gala tickets issued to people who are likely to go to the event. Not everybody who possesses a Grand Gala ticket will ultimately go there on the day for whatever reason, for one reason or another. But try go give the ticket to those patriotic Jamaicans who mean this country good and would want to go and celebrate Jamaica's 63rd, the 63rd anniversary of Jamaica's birth. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that if PNP MPs are given tickets, there is every likelihood that they will want to or may elect to withhold those tickets and not pass them on to their constituents because they don't want to see Grand Gala being well attended. In the days ahead, I will, well, let me not go there. And I suspect, as we have seen in the past, Mark Golding may be thinking long and hard as to whether he attends Grand Gala this year. But anyway, a something a come and a something a go. So we will see what we shall see, and we will see, yeah? That brings us to the end of the broadcast. Let me thank you for joining me this morning. Thank you.